emergency is an emergency. And right now, of course, we have a lot of simultaneous crises, but we have to pay attention to climate change.
I work a lot in the media space and trying to make sure that climate activists and climate groups are getting the media attention that they need to be able to get the word out. But it's really difficult because things are really oversaturated. And I think one of the best sort of ways I've found to get around that is through framing. So really being intentional about how we are framing the climate crisis as something that interacts with all of these different issues. So I guess I can give the example of the Ukraine and Russia crisis. The crisis in Russia and Ukraine has caused a lack of flow of oil from Russia to European countries. And now those countries are relying on countries like the US to provide natural gas and oil to make up for those needs. And so in the US, we're ramping up our production of natural gas and fossil fuels and contributing to that issue when we could definitely be ramping up renewables as well. So there are energy and environment issues that are really interacting with these other global crises. And I think one of the ways that we found to be most effective is to make sure that we're framing those global crises not as something that's happening in isolation, but as something that's happening very much in interaction with justice and energy and environment issues, and making sure that we're drawing those connections.
We are seeing live the suffering of millions of people who have been displaced, who are still there and are still suffering, and it is very tough to try and prioritize other things because you feel that you're ignoring that. In the recent months, I have been mostly working, sort of supporting humanitarian aid for Ukrainian refugees. So even I have had to shift part of my attention to these matters that we are considering right now very urgent. It is completely understandable, so I don't want to take any importance from what is happening in Iran, in Palestine, in Ukraine. Whenever someone tries to generally, in any situation, sort of make climate change and the fight against the climate emergency seem less important and less urgent than it is, I remind them two things. The first one is that in 30 years, we're going to see millions and millions and millions of displaced people all over the world. Not only displaced people like refugees that have to leave their countries because there is a civil war, but also people in the United States that are going to have to flee their homes or in very developed, economically developed areas. And that is something that we are not used to and not ready for. So that is the first thing that I like to remember. We know that we haven't been good in the past at managing this kind of emergency. And the second thing is that the price that we're going to have to pay in many years from now to adapt to climate change and kind of tackle all the issues that are going to come to climate change in 50 or 40 years from now is way more money than what we would have to invest right now for adaptation and mitigation measures. So waiting any longer is just going to make that bill grow more and more. So they should be aware of that, right? Like an emergency is an emergency. And right now, of course, we have a lot of simultaneous crises, but we have to pay attention to climate change and not forget the climate emergency.